All right. Hello, guys. Good evening. Welcome to our webinar. This is going to be our J-1 sponsorship webinar. We are in collaboration with JEDI International Committee, RSA, and as well as Women in EM. So this is an exciting webinar. We wanted to collectively come together to provide information for anyone on the trail that is a non-US IMG to show our inclusiveness here at AAEM. So without further ado, panelists, may you go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us about who you are.
I can go first. Hi, everyone. I'm Lola. I am originally from Toronto, Canada. I went to St. George's University for medical school. I trained in Chicago at Rush University Medical Center, and I just started my attending job in Baltimore, Maryland.
Congratulations.
Yay, congrats.
Awesome. Welcome, Lola. My name is Allison Spice, also from Toronto, Canada, and I am applying to EM. So I'm going through the interview track, I guess you can see, stream, and I went to St. James School of Medicine.
Nice. Thank you, guys. So Allison, I know you have some information that you wanted us to go through. Would you like to go through it now or after?
We might want to go through it just quickly now, and then it might raise some concerns or questions that some of the attendees may have, participants, and that way they have an idea of like what we're talking about today. If they have questions while I'm going through it, they can definitely raise a hand or even put the questions in the actual chat. So that's fine if that's okay, if you guys want to do it. And then we can also call in Lola with her experiences and things that she has to add as well.
Okay, sounds good. So Dr. Allison Spicer made a beautiful presentation, just kind of helping everyone with the documentation process. So please enjoy.
You guys can still hear me, right? I'm not on mute. Okay, good. Just making sure. Perfect. Okay, so this is just a kind of an overview just based on my experience as far as looking into the information. As you all know, I'm a non-US IMG, so I am Canadian. So in order for getting into residency, the first thing you need to do is to have your ECFMG certification, and then also what are your visa requirements depending on where you go. Okay, so in order to get your ECFMG certification or your requirements is that you actually have three folds, or I guess four folds, areas that you need to make sure you acquire. So one, your medical school requirements, that you've graduated from medical school, that you apply for the actual ECFMG and pay any fees that apply to that. You've completed your step 1 and step 2 CK, and then also your medical school credentials have been applied, or they have been verified. So what that happens is we'll go through each of these individually, is that once you tell ECFMG that you're applying for certification, they send notification to your medical school, and your medical school will turn around and say, oh yes, they fit all the qualifications, they've graduated. So your medical school requirements, the first kind of pillar is that you have to make sure that your school is on the World Directory of Medical Schools. There's a link here too. It's a working link. I'm sure Katie and Shantae are going to share the presentation with those who would like to have it. So then that way you can go ahead, even if you just click on it and then it'll come up and you just search the World Directory, and then you go in directly the school that you're looking at. Okay, so then it has all the schools, and then what you will actually see within the notes is the sponsor note to say that they actually they're certified, and yes, they can receive ECFMG certification. So you go to the sponsor note. I just looked up my school just to kind of show you guys, and then it clicks here. So students and graduates eligible to apply for ECFMG certification. Okay, so then you know that you fit that requirement. Okay, there's more information if you need it through the ECFMG certification as well. And this is just telling you, I went through it really quickly of how to do the search on the world directory, but just to show you that you can do that as well. So the second part is doing your actual online application. So online application, and it brings you to your actual account. What actually happens when it brings you to your account, I think it's up here, is that it kind of gives you to the certification instructions once you log in with your USMLE ID. So your name of the applicant, date of birth, gender, email address, medical education status, certificate of application, and the Form 186, which a lot of you being at a Caribbean school have already done anyways for step 1, step 2. Okay, and then obviously payment, right? They always want our money. Okay. So as far as with that, the exam requirements, like I said, step 1 and step 2 CK, you want to make sure that you're kind of going or applied for a pathway no later than end of January. Obviously, that's a rule of thumb. If you're after that date, that's fine. It just tends to be a little bit busier, but you just want to make sure that you have your ECFMG certification prior to starting residency. Lola, what was your experience with applying for your ECFMG certification? Did you apply before this deadline, or when did you apply for yours?
I finished in March, so I applied a little bit after that. So maybe around like April and May is when I kind of started the process. Oh, sorry, this is different. Sorry, I'm like mixing up things. This is for when you have to apply to go into residency, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. What you're talking about is fine. Yes. So that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. So a lot of times they tell you to apply for your pathway. This is so you get your certificate, your ECFMG
Yeah.
certificate.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
remember applying it. Actually, I remember applying for this pathway thing before taking
Yeah.
two. So that was around like the fall, from what I remember, like
In the
maybe
fall.
like October or November, and then I wrote OET in December around that time.
Right.
I may have my timelines,
Yes.
but I remember it was,
It
yeah,
was a while for you. So congratulations on
yeah.
that. If you're attending, right?
Thanks, yeah.
So a lot of times people with the OET, I sorry, go back. Oh, the OET, those requirements, a lot of people say the chatter online and through Reddit, and that is usually December. So you want to make sure that you have your scores completed or the test exam done in December, and just make sure that there's a way online through OET to filter and to send those on to ECFMG, because ECFMG needs that in order to apply for your certification. Okay, your medical school credentials. So like Lola was saying, usually March, April, when you've actually graduated. So one, you've graduated from medical school completely. You have your final diploma, because sometimes you will have to upload that onto ECFMG. And then any other requirements that or validation of education that they may need. But for me personally, when I did this, because I just graduated June of this year, is that I already had my degree, and I just uploaded it onto the medical ECFMG, and then they contacted the school right away in order to verify that, yes, I have graduated. These are the different pathways. A lot of time your school will tell you which pathway you are. So if you're not not sure about it, then obviously you can go ahead and reach out to your school to find out exactly what pathway you are. Or as far as with that, you can always look on the ECFMG website to let you know as well. A lot of times it's usually pathway 3, medical school accredited agency recognized by World Federation of Medical Education that we went through, or sometimes even the Foreign Medical Education Accreditation. Okay, so those are things just to look at. So in summary, just to kind of give you an overview, so kind of explain, because it's hard when you kind of get all this information and not physically going through it. It's a lot of information and you get worried about different parts because different things are moving, or you got to wait until you're done things. Don't stress about it. Just concentrate on one thing at a time. Pass your step 1, pass your step 2, do your OET exam. Once you get graduation, You apply for your pathway, the school validates that you've done all of your requirements, and then you get your ECFMG certification. You'll get the certification by email directly within like usually a week. If it's a busier time, it could be up to 4 weeks as far as with that. And then the physical certificate will be mailed to you as well. Okay, when it goes into the visa, so this is the question that we all have in regards to a lot of stuff when it comes to residency, because it's something that kind of makes it what we're available to actually apply to, or what programs we want to apply to. So that definitely is something to consider about. So in order to get a visa, when it comes to non-US IMGs, there's usually two visas that you're looking for, either a J-1 or an H-1B. The J-1 visa is actually done and granted through ECFMG, whereas the H-1B visa is actually done through the actual hospital system or the employer. Okay. With the J-1 visa, you do have different requirements, and you have what we call a guarantee that you're going to go back to your home country for 2 years after you've done your residency in the US. However, there are ways to get around that you can take a position in an underserved population in the United States and like a rural area, work in that job for 2 years, and then you can get a waiver and stay within there. And a lot of times your next employment will be on an H-1B sponsorship through a program. Before I get into that, Lola, what kind of do you have, did you have to go through the J-1 or H-1B?
I did the J-1. H-1Bs aren't as common
Right.
for residency, and I didn't want to limit where I trained, so I did the J-1.
That's right. Right. So a lot of people do the J-1 just because you don't have to worry about the actual hospital sponsoring you. It's just that you're looking for the residency program that recognizes it, so that they are willing to take J-1 visa holders that are sponsored by ECFMG. And that's what you look at when you look at your Residency Explorer and all the different residency programs. So in order to qualify for a J-1 visa, you need to have your valid ECFMG certification. You need to have a signed contract of your residency, or like the match results that you've matched into a program. And then you also need an original statement of need from the Ministry of Health. That's through Canada that would provide you or give that to you. Okay, this is what you're talking about, the actual statement of need. So this has happened later in March, or once you've graduated, if it's April or May. So once you have graduated, you have your ECFMG certification, and you have your offer of residency that you've signed, then you're going to fill out the application form for the statement of need. You're going to show them proof of citizenship, usually or PR status, like your passport. And then obviously one of the following, like it says, a signed consent or disclosure form, and then you want to, one of the contract or the match website letter, and then also with it your signed consent and disclosure, and then you email the actual visa office to say, I'm Allison Spice for statement of need, etc. It usually takes about 30 days. And I've included here too the instructions, so it goes over and view with you of how to get the statement of need. Okay, and then also as far as the application form to fill it out. Okay, so it's very easy, all inclusive, that's included here for you guys. So applying for a J-1, you also need, as far as the DS, oh, sorry, when I click on it, right? A couple other moving parts for it. So you need DS 2019, which is a certificate of eligibility. This is issued by the actual ECFMG, so there's nothing that you need to do on this part. So as long as you filled out the application for the J1 through ECFMG and everything, then they will send this form to you. You just need to sign where it says indicated. Okay. Then what you need to do is the DS-160 application, and link is here. That's a form that's by the US government, and you pay a fee of $185. You register with their student and exchange visitor program, another fee, just the US side as well. And you fill that out, and then you present everything. So your forms, your passport, all of the documentation that you have when you get to the border, if it's land or air. So this is what you would do at the actual border. So your passport, your forms, and supporting documents, and proof of payment that you've actually have registered with the student education system. Okay. The only other component for this is if you're traveling by air, so at the airport or by land, that you automatically 100% make sure that you have the form I-94 before you leave, because you need to have that to show that, one, you have arrived, and you need that form in order to apply for your social security number. And obviously you need that for residency in order to get paid. Okay. There's other links as far as if you have questions in regards to J2. So if anybody's accompanying you, I'll just go ahead and kind of leave it at there, because it's a lot of information to take in. And I know some people may just have specific questions, and then we can always go through as far as that.
Thank you so much, Allison. That was an amazing and very in-depth presentation, loaded with a lot of information. So guys, any questions? If not, we have our own, but if you do think of anything, you can type it in the chat. Please feel free to unmute yourselves. This is your opportunity to gain as much information, so please do so.
So I do have a question here. It says, do you have to remain in the US while it's processing? I'll hand that over to Lola, because maybe Lola is with her experience knowing. I'm not assuming so, but what's your experience, Lola?
While processing the J1.
Yeah.
So I think from what I remember, you have to be outside because you have to cross into the US with your J1. So you like pretty much get your J1 at the border. You do all the paperwork and everything, and then when you get to the border, the kind of border patrol approves your paperwork, and then you start your J1 kind of process once you cross the border.
Right. So there could be a situation that maybe potentially from when you finish your rotations, you could be in the US and you haven't traveled back to Canada or your home country. There could be a part that you could still stay in because you're on your B2 visa, right? So it's a different visa until you get your J1. So just like Lola is saying, that's fine. You can stay because you're on your B2 visa because you're still finishing school as far as with that. But a lot of times you just got to make sure you follow what your B2 says. So if you're B2, they've only given you a year and your date you have to leave is April 4th, then you have to leave April 4th. You can't stay while you're waiting for your J1. You'll have to go back to your home country or work on getting an extension, which means still going to the border as well. I hope that answers it for you. Okay, so no matter what visa you're on, make sure you follow the requirements. So if you're on a B2, I think it's B1 or B2, I can't even remember, that you're on right now, just make sure that whatever the date they've given to you, that you either get in 6 months or a year, that you make sure you follow that, because you don't want any problems with any visa issues going forward.
Thank you so much. Someone else put in the chat, what's the process for getting a J1 waiver?
Yeah, there's two processes for waivers, but I'll give that to Lola first. I'm sure she has firsthand experience.
Yeah, like Allison mentioned, the whole point of this visa is so that foreigners can come into the United States, get skills and like technically go back to their home countries and use the skills that they learned in the United States. But there's kind of like this like loophole, because obviously you live here for a couple years, people get married, have children, all kinds of things. So there's this option called the waiver, where you can stay in the United States. So you can either go to your home country for 2 years after completing your 3 or 4 years of residency, or you can do a waiver, which is essentially working in an underserved area for 3 years. Either way, you can eventually apply for your green card, but you either have to, if you're going to stay, you have to work in an underserved area, or you have to go to your home country for 2 years. So obviously I'm in Baltimore, so I did the waiver. So I have to work here for 3 years. And then that will satisfy my waiver requirements.
Exactly. So there's a couple ways, like Lola was saying with the waiver. There's different waivers. So there's state waivers and then there's federal waivers, right? So a lot of times they have a restricted numbers of them. So they're underserved populations that they're trying to get you to stay there, usually 2 or 3 years, exactly like Lola said. And then after that, her next job most likely, are you on an H-1B now with them with the waiver, or this is still the J-1?
H-1B. Technically, when you're on your
Yes,
waiver, it's an H-1B.
H-1B. Yeah, so it's been switched over to the H-1B.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So a lot of times the searches are getting a lot easier for this, is because just like Lola saying, you can either go to your home country, work for a couple of years, and then apply again to come down back to the States if that's what you choose to, right? Or some people, if they're flexible, they're able to serve in underserved areas. Sometimes even with the underserved areas, depending on the locations, is that they're really in dire need. Like there's a need for physicians in the area, and not a lot of people are accessible to work in those areas.
Awesome. Okay, so kind of going off of that, so the next question is, I've heard of stories of getting sponsorship and then having trouble at the borders, leaving matched non-US IMG students to forfeit their match spots. So how do we ensure that this does not happen?
The big thing for me when I was applying was making sure like the residency program had done something like this before. Because I had like a paralegal helping me through all of this when I was applying to residency. So doing a lot of research early on, and then just making sure you either have mentorship or even like the program that you matched into, just making sure that you have good support and doing your due diligence to make sure you have all of your paperwork and everything checked off. And you have usually you have a couple months to make sure you have everything, thankfully. But it's really like your own responsibility to make sure you do all the research and ask all the questions, and make sure you have everything ready.
Right. So based on my experience and going to the border, is that regardless of what nationality you are, is that the US government doesn't want you to be there illegally. They don't want you to be there illegally. They don't want you to extend their stay, and they don't want you to potentially have a green card if you really don't want to be there. So they want to see, what are your ties? For example, Canada. What are your ties to Canada? Right? So do you have family in Canada? Do you have a retirement plan? Do you have money that you're going to be able to support yourself? Like obviously residency, you have a job, right? Do you have a mortgage, etc. So based on the experience that I've had from other classmates, is that they don't show that they have direct ties to Canada or potentially even coming back. And that's where they've had problems and issues. Um, for example, I know we're talking about visas in general, but when my daughter came with me to South Texas when I did core rotations, my eldest, she had to get an F1 visa. And when we first went across the border, they're like, she didn't have the visa yet because we hadn't enrolled her in the school. And we're thinking nothing of it, 'cause we're like, oh, if she doesn't like the school, then we'll just put her back on the airplane and go back home, because my husband was coming down just to get me settled in South Texas, and they can go home together. But to the US government at the border, it was a huge red flag. It was like, oh, she's going to stay there illegally. She's going to go to school illegally. I'm like, no, like she can just fly home. It's okay. Like, you know what I mean? But they just want to show that proof that you have your documents. So the rule of thumb, like Lola says, is that do your research, have your ECFMG certification, have your visa forms all signed, done, show them proof that you've CVIS has been registered, show them proof of your contract for employment, you know, that you have your DS 219, everything in a folder file, even bank statements, any retirements, if you have RSPs or TFSA or your bank statements, you know what I mean? Family members back home, you know what I mean? All those things, have that kind of ready for when you go to the border.
And then the ECFMG website literally has a checklist. Like I printed it out and made sure I like had everything and even like multiple copies just in case.
All right, thank you guys so much. That was very in-depth. We do have another question in the chat. This person is asking, for those who are graduating, let's say in April 2025, and they apply for Match 2025, would this be enough time to do all of these requirements? And if yes, do they still need to take OET by December?
I think the best rule of thumb is probably reach out to OET and see how long they actually need to have it. On their website, they tell you, and a lot of online things tell you that you should have it scheduled and taking the exam in December. December of the year that you want to graduate, like the year prior to when you want to graduate, when you want to match. Depending on doing the ECFMG requirement, everything, usually the rule of thumb is that you want to graduate or be done all of your medical school criteria, usually no later than beginning of May. That's usually just kind of the consensus. Obviously, the earlier the better, because as that time gets closer and closer to residency starting in June, July, is that it will take longer for ECFMG to process because there's going to be more applicants doing that process. Did you want to add anything to that, Lola? You were March and April, so that you gave you enough time in order to do everything.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Just from my own personal experience, I'd just like to add, just try to get the OET done by December for sure. I think if you do it in the following year, there is like some form of delay, or you're not able to apply for that match cycle. So just make sure you go for the last date in December if you're nervous for it, but you got this.
I was just trying to look it up. For last year, they made the extension from December 31st to February, but I do not see that for 2025 cycle. So like Shantae said earlier, the better, just so there's no, heartache down the road. So kind of going up on the interview trail, how do we bring up visa sponsorship during interviews?
I think that's it. Well, it kind of comes up because the first question a lot of programs will ask you is like, so tell me about yourself. Like, so obviously, oh, I'm from Toronto, Canada. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like the first thing. I think, and when you go through this trail, or anybody that's been through this trail being a non-US IMG, they will know. I think it's rare, but it does happen that you may slip through without them knowing that you needed a visa. But when you fill out the My ERAS application, right away you put J-1 or H-1B, it's automatically there right away. So they have their own filters, And that's where you'll see at the beginning that you get some rejections right away, is because even though they may say on their website or through Residency Explorer, like, oh, yes, we like IMGs and we sponsor visas. But then at the end of the day, they don't even want to interview potentially people that need J1s. So don't be discouraged about that, because that's not the type of support system that you would want anyways from a residency. And just do your work into, like Lola said earlier, look into the residency programs. And the hard part of it, if it's a residency program that you're really interested in, try to connect with the coordinators of the program to see if you get in contact with the residents, because a lot of the pages, the residents, you can see where they went to school, but they may be an IMG, but they may be a US IMG. So you might want to reach out to them to see if there's any, or networking through here if anybody else has had experiences before.
Perfect. Lola, do you have anything to add to that, or?
No, just like Allison said, they do have like the filters. Although like I know people who are non-US IMDs that match into programs that like had never matched non-US IMG. So if it's a program that you really, really, really are interested in, like reach out and let them know your situation. You never know. But also it's expensive applying to residency. So I would, I mostly applied to places where I saw that they had sponsored in the past. So, I just think, yeah, just being sensible about where you apply. And then if it's a place that you're really interested in, try to reach out to the program directly.
All right, thank you. So our next question is, any advice on navigating programs for visa sponsorships, or specific questions I should ask about programs in the interview process?
That's a really good question. So what I'm learning about right now is that some programs have really good support of actually like a specific person that liaisons and helps you with the ECFMG certification. And some other programs that they don't even know, so they're kind of a little bit more, you're a great candidate, but they're just not sure if you're going to have potential visa problems. So you can tell that there's obviously a different level of support. So those are questions that you could ask, especially is like you're in that seat, they've picked you for an interview out of how many applicants, right? So you've done all the hard work, so be proud that you're there, and don't be intimidated by asking those questions, because at the end of the day, you don't want to rank them high, whereas they won't even potentially want to help you navigate through the system, right? So you want to ask things like, do you have anybody that's your point of contact within the program when it comes to visas? Is there somebody that if I have questions in regards to obtaining my J1 that's able to help me and walk me through the process? That's what I would feel I would ask.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, so oh, sorry, Shante, you want
No,
to
go
go?
ahead. Go ahead, Kitty.
Okay, so one other question is, do we have a higher chance of matching in a state where you have the connections that you guys are talking about, such as family, friends, when looking for visa sponsorships? Have you guys come across those questions during your interviews?
From what I remember, I mean, sometimes it's nice to have some tie there or some interest in the state or city. You might not necessarily need to have family or friends, but maybe it's a city that you've always wanted to work in or train in some way. My residency class, most of us weren't even from Chicago. And, so I know most programs want like happy residents. So being from there, or having ties there will probably make you more desirable. But I mean, it doesn't like rule you out from matching at a program, but just being on the other side, I know it's something that they consider when ranking.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, the programs want people that are going to be happy and be a good fit for the program and a good fit with their other residents. You got to remember too is that if you were making a team, like a resident team, there's going to be different people, different personalities, because you want to pull on everybody's or different strengths within a team, right? So you're not going to have the same exact characteristic from resident A to resident B to resident C. Yes, you're going to have similar qualities and things between the residents, but you're also going to have your own uniqueness as well. What you want to make sure that you really have is that you kind of not necessarily the tie to the area, but what are your goals? Like you may want to bring up potentially, like, what is your 5-year plan? What is your 10-year plan? Because being from another country, are you just here really for the residency experience and then you want to go home and practice? Or do you want to potentially stay in the States, develop roots, stay within a community? Because I think a lot of programs initially, just like anything, they would love some of their residents to stay on as attendings, but to set that expectation, what I've done personally in some of my interviews is saying that obviously I would have a J-1 visa through ECFMG certification, sponsorship. I want to establish roots and within community, especially for my children's for school. But at the same time, too, I have to follow my visa requirements. So I may have to go and work in an underserved, underrepresented area for a couple years before I get to pick or choose where I really want to practice.
All right, perfect. We have another question here in the chat. How long does it take for you to become ECFMG certified after graduating medical school? Do you have a rough ballpark?
I think the toughest thing with any of us, especially from the Caribbean schools, I was talking to some St. George candidates right now for EM today, and it's no different from school A to B to C, is that you just got to be on your school in order to get your actual certificate to say, hey, you've graduated. I think that's the biggest hurdle. Besides that, to actually get the ECFMG certification, it's same thing. It goes back to your school, because once you fill out the forms, ECFMG sends you an email right away that's saying, hey, we received your application. We've sent the credentials to be verified by your medical school. So sometimes it's just a matter of following up and making sure you're doing your due diligence with your actual medical school to make sure that they're doing it in a timely fashion. For me, I think it took less than 10 days, but I was on an off cycle. I was in June, July, right? So it's not a busy time. So expect that to potentially be a little bit longer.
Yeah, mine took like almost a month because it was like when everyone else was doing it.
Right.
I was literally harassing my point person like every 3 or 4 days, and I was like, "You're not about to make me not start residency." But yeah, just being on top of them because they're so busy. Like there's 1,000 students in each class in these schools, so yeah, just being on top of it is the only thing you can do, really, honestly.
Yeah, just don't let it slide. Don't think, oh, I'll wait until Monday, it's Thursday, or oh, it's Friday. No, just send the email right away. And I find the best too is that being a little bit personable to whoever you're contacting with the school, and be like extra friendly, like, oh, hi, Michelle. I know you're extremely busy right now. Just wondering how my certificate of graduation is coming along. Like, you know what I mean? Just that added touch, then they'll be more receptive instead of you being calling them on the phone and yelling at them.
I was the opposite because I was like, I was, I was not,
Stressing.
I was not like disrespectful, but I was like, hey,
No.
you know, I need to submit these things by this date, especially with the visa and everything. I just didn't know what delays were gonna come, so I was very like on top of them. Like not again, not disrespectful, but I was stern is the best way I would put it.
Making sure that they knew that you needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. Thank you guys so much. Does anyone else have any questions? Don't be shy. There is no such thing as a silly question. Please take use of these two amazing ladies. They have brought a lot of information tonight. So go ahead and type or unmute yourself if possible.
I do see a question here, guys, about DO. To be honest with you, I don't know if USDO schools, no, you don't need to do ECFMG certification. So ECFM certification is only for people that have gone to school at international medical schools. So schools out of Canada and US. And there was another one here is about process and establishing residency in New York and the Form 2CC. To be honest with you, I know of classmates from St. James that are actually in residency programs within New York. I don't have firsthand information. If you want to send me directly a message to me, your email, and then I can email you and put you in contact with that person, because then that person that's actually in New York doing the residency, they may be able to help you out with that.
Also, the PowerPoint will be sent out to everybody that Dr. Spice graciously put together and presented tonight. So don't worry, you will get that in your email later on this week.
And feel free, guys, like I'm currently the chair of AAEM RSA International Committee. So we're geared toward the international medical graduates and students, as well as residents. So if you'd like to apply through AAEM to sit on our committee, feel free to do so as far as upcoming topics and things. Same with the women's organization, Women in Emergency Medicine with AAEM, and then also JEDI. Okay, so justice, inclusion, equality, justice, equality, and inclusion division there too as well. So if you guys are interested in joining and being involved, always reach out to us.
Yes, definitely reach out. I have the pleasure of being on all three committees, which is great. I work alongside with Allison as the vice chair. So if you want to reach out to any one of us, we would love to have you. Of course, Women in EM, Katie is my girl, and JEDI, I'm the councilman there. So if you have any questions, I have all the information for you.
There is one more chat or question in the chat. We have a participant here that's a paramedic student from Kenya and wants to know if you can apply through ECFMG. Do you guys know anything about that?
I don't think that it would apply. I think it's just for medical school, so for MDs or MBBS graduates. If you're actually curious as far as that, then I could be wrong, that you may want to look at the link, the World Directory of Medical Education, and then see if your school potentially be on there and take a look at the pathways.
There's a question here, just asking to speak about obtaining the H-1B visa and what was required to demonstrate what you were working in an underserved area in the US. So, like I said earlier, I'm doing the waiver, which is I have to work in an underserved area, and there's like a scoring system that makes certain areas underserved. And there's a website that I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll look for it, that certain areas meet those requirements. And then typically, or fortunately or unfortunately, they prioritize primary care usually for these spots. So I would say if you're towards the ends of residency right now, I would try to start looking as early as possible, because those spots get taken up. And there's each state has a certain number of spots for these visas. And so you want to apply sooner than later.
All right, perfect. I just noticed one of our guests have turned on their camera, so I think you have a question. Please introduce yourself and let us know your question.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, I have to apologize. We got out of the clinic a little late today, so I just caught the end of the meeting. So I was just hoping, but it sounds like it's all done. But I guess my question would be, can I contact somebody just by email quickly to get a recap of what happened today? I apologize for being late, but
Yeah, no
Hey.
worries. This is actually recorded, so you can catch it on the AAEM website. And all of our panelists, they will be putting their emails and contact information, so you can reach out there as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Any
for the
last
recap here and adding it in.
questions? Any last minute questions, guys? Get them in.
I'm pretty bold. I put my cell phone. Yes, I'm responsive right now. So I've graduated. Yes, I'm working on different things and studying for step 3, but that's okay. I know what the stressors of going through everything is and wondering about your visa issues. So I'm open to mentorship. So if anybody has any questions, reach out to me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Allison. All right, guys, if we don't have any further questions, again, please get involved, whether it's at JEDI or Women in EM. We have beautiful apparel as well, so please shop at Women in EM's apparel store and get your swag. Maybe we'll see you in, I think it's April, right, for our conference, or the Science Assembly, so that'd be nice if you showed up. And as well as don't hesitate to get involved with the International Committee, RSA. We are looking for members. So we're excited for you to join us as well. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you to Allison and Lola for sharing their information. It was a pleasure, and this collaboration with all three has been amazing tonight. Enjoy your night and have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for
Bye,
hosting us,
everyone.
guys.
Bye. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Take care.
Bye.